G'day, Ben from Melbourne here. And today in the Essential series, that's right, the one where I recommend the building blocks to your Australian collection um, of the essential sort of five records in whatever, in an era. I try and keep it together, and also a genre as well. So today we're going to talk about 70s punk in Australia. Had a rich punk scene, still kicking today, still many great bands, and a lot of the bands that I'm going to show were huge influences, not just on great Australian bands to follow, but also you can hear reverberations of that sound around the world, particularly in the 80s. A lot of the grunge bands, which become known as grunge, but I'm not talking like your Pearl Jams and all that, but more the people who like Steve Arm and Mark Turner, Steve Turner and Mark Arm from Mudhoney, who are in Green River, bands like Tad, things like that, were influenced by a lot of this Australian punk sound. And if you don't believe me, go ask them. Guess who's fronting the Saints at the moment? None other than Mark Arm. All right, let's get straight into it with Perth's The Scientists. Now, there are a few eras of The Scientists, and they're actually still going on and off with the great Kim Salmon, which you know from Bisa Bourbon, and also his band, The Surrealists. And this is like ground zero for The Scientists. You got James Baker, who seemed to be in every band on their first album of every great band of that era of the late 70s and the 80s. And now this has just got the classics on here of, That Girl, I'm Looking for You, She Said. This is more like just their straight up snotty punk sound. Later on, they would have a bit more of a dirgy sound. Different lineup, different rhythm section made a big difference. But this is like the collision of the noise and still got like the catchiness of like the punk of that era. Fantastic band, The Scientists. I recommend not just this, but pretty much picking up anything you see from that 70s and 80s period. Fantastic band. And next up, probably one of the biggest and most influential bands, and that's, of course, Radio Birdman. Their album Radio Appears. There's a couple of different covers for this, depending on if it's the Australian or the international release, which also means there's different track listings. But this band influenced a bazillion bands, and everybody in this band formed a heap of other great bands, and they also produced a ton of awesome bands as well. So based on Dennis Tech's growing up in Detroit over there and seeing those bands like the MC5 and the Stooges firsthand, and then coming over here to be a doctor, I think. I don't know, he does everything. He flies airplanes, he's a doctor, he's a great guitar slinger as well, and he wanted to play some high-octane rock and roll with some Australians, and luckily he found these dudes, because you're going to get things like Do the Pop, Non-Stop Girls, Descent into Maelstrom, New Race, of course, Aloha, Stephen Dano. There's compilations of Radio Birdman that have come out in the last few years. Both this and the follow-up record have both been reissued, so shouldn't be too hard to track down some form of Radio Birdman overseas. What an amazing band. And now, like the yin to the yang of a Radio Birdman with the greatest punk band of all time, no contest, The Saints, with their stunning debut record, I'm Stranded. The first three are untouchable. They're all the ones with the great Ed Cooper on guitar. Changed the game. One of the earliest. It's like, I think they had a single out before, 3 months before The Damned had New Rose out. But another great band. Let's not split hairs. But, they didn't have a look, as you can tell, on the front like a lot of the UK punk bands. So they kind of failed miserably on that front, but they were ferocious live. I can only say that's what I have heard through audio recordings of that of back in the day. I have seen them with Mark Arm fronting them, and I did see them the previous time when Chris Bailey was still alive fronting them, and they were pretty fucking amazing still. Of course, it's got, I'm Stranded, Wild About You, the cover of the Missing Links we mentioned in a video or two ago. And then, my favourite, Nights in Venice, to end the album. Like, every track on this is a killer. The second album, Eternally Yours, is amazing as well. No matter what you say, George Blockhead, and your anti-horn stance. Watch the videos of George Man Ritchie if you want to get into that. Anyway, all-time classic, The Saints. And next up, another band that James Baker played the drums in the early days, also from Perth, and that's The Victims, fronted by Dave Flick, who became, he became Dave Flick, and then he turned back to Dave Faulkner, better known as the frontman of the Hoodoo Gurus. But this is essential. Several different things you can find of The Victims. They appear on compilations. They have some of their own compilations. They pretty much everything they recorded, I think, is on This Sleeping Dogs Lie. Television Addict appears on heaps of different stuff, and the B-side on Flipped Out Over You. But this whole record is killer. It would have been great if they could have stuck around longer and put together a full-length album, but what we got is pretty fucking amazing. Anything you see, Victims, even the one-off single that they did from when they got back together with, was it Rayan from the Hard-Ons, playing bass, is worth your while, with the great song Girls Don't Like Punks, I think it's called. And last of all, bit more left field, but The Thought Criminals. As you can tell from a name like that, these dudes were paranoid. And it's got like a insular kind of sound, which is kind of like, I don't know. I always think of them as Our Wire, I suppose, or do we call Wire the UK's The Thought Criminals? Think about that. But fantastic record. Speed Madness, Flying Saucers. As you can see, not your average subject matter of punks at the time. Where everybody else was like sticking it to the man, these dudes were on another trip. Well, I guess you could argue Radio Birdman were as well. My favourite named song, which I think pretty much sums up everything that The Thought Criminals is about, is the last song on side 1 called Fuck the Neighbours. Awesome band, Thought Criminals, and that's number 5 in my Australian punk essentials from the 70s. If you want to build a punk rock collection, that's a great way to start. Now, all of these albums are fantastic. If you can find compilations as well, that's a worthwhile way of going. There's a myriad of great punk comps, and a lot of the